So, I heard stories of my mother before I was born, and I have pictures of my mom when she was younger, and she was so beautiful. Um, she was very beautiful, very sweet. Everyone loved her. She would cut people's hair. In my family, she wasn't a hairdresser, but she liked to cut hair, and she would dance a lot. And she was very sweet. My dad, the way that he recalls my mom is obsessive and psychotic and crazy. But I don't feel like that was my mother. So when my mom met my dad before I was born and right after I was born, it was almost like my dad had something on him that was following him around. Some kind of disgruntled spirit or like obsessive fan, I want to say, like, or something. And maybe I thought it was me for a while because after I was born, my parents, they didn't work out. But I knew it wasn't me because this same spirit followed my mother, started stalking my mother after, and entered into her other relationships and tore my family apart, like all of my family. Like, it's entered into my relationships. I've watched it wreak havoc on communities and other people, and it will possess someone and it will make it look as if that person is just fucking awful, possessive, obsessive, whatever. And then it will just leave and you'll just be in a fog and you're like, oh my god, what happened? So this thing will suck men dry. It's like a succubus. And I feel like it was following my father, and it got on my mother, and then it got in between my mom and my stepdad, and then it's followed my father. My father's never had successful relationships. He married this lady from Romania for a little while and then got a divorce, and he just doesn't have luck with women or relationships. He always feels smothered. And I feel like I had decent relationships up until the point um, of my last few. I felt there was something that would get in the middle of my relationships, and it keeps me from having not just relationships, it also will tear my friendships apart. Even people that I'm nice to or nice to me, it'll turn them against me. It will possess people, and it won't let me have any friends. It won't let me stay in one place and live happily. It turns everything over if I try to be happy. And it reminds me of this fucking this just person in my dreams that keeps popping up. Um, and anyway, I feel like this same thing was following my ex around. And he was like married the entire time we were together, but his wife had left him and moved back to her home country or whatever. And it felt like this, whatever it was following my ex around in the same way that it followed my father around. Inserted itself into my relationship and tried to tear it apart, which is, typical considering I watched this happen throughout my childhood to my family members, and no one would really believe me. Like, no one would listen. But my mother, I remember my mother a couple times, and I had a pretty bad childhood, but there were times I remember when I was really young. I mean, before my sister was born. I don't know how I remember memories from, 2 and 3 years old, but my mom, I just remember a couple of times when I would hug her and I would feel her. It was almost like something trying to be my mother that wasn't, but I could feel my real mother in there. And um, she was nurturing and happy. Not at all like this thing that kept trying to be my mother. So I had this dream, maybe like 3 years ago. I want to say like 3 years ago or something. And I dreamed I lived in this palace, this fucking castle or something, but it was in the sky, and it was like on these clouds. And inside the palace, there were these floating cat statues. And my father was like a king or some kind of ruler. It was weird. Like, people could do things, but he had all these wives. Like, he had several wives, like a whole fucking harem of wives. And one of them I hated because she was so fucking mean. But she would do it behind my father's back, where like he wouldn't realize what was happening because he was kind of dumb. I mean, my dad was always distracted, too distracted to talk to me, too distracted to see anything I've done. And like in the dream, I just remember being excited for something and trying to approach him in this room. And he had soldiers around him, and he was doing some kind of war plans or something. He was making plans to attack some kind of planet. I don't know what he was doing, but his wife was just awful. And she would bully me like telepathically. And like no one around me knew what was happening, and if I tried to say something, no one would believe me because they couldn't hear, see, or experience what I was experiencing. And if I tried to speak out, or if I tried to express these things, I just sounded crazy. Or people just think I'm fucking crazy. And all I ever really wanted to do was just talk to my father. And so his wife was really fucking cruel and just abusive. And I don't remember, this goes into like the dream I had where I was in this palace, and all of a sudden I was a shape-shifting bird, and there was like a princess there, and it was the same palace, only this time I wasn't her. I became a bird. It was like we switched or something. Like I couldn't deal with my father's wife. Oh, like it seemed like the rest of his wives were okay, but it was just the one. It was the one wife. It was the one that he had. She was all of the time in my head, like making me feel insignificant, always making me feel like nothing, and like tearing people apart. And it's just a pattern that keeps repeating. And so I feel like, in this life, who my father is, he's a nobody, technically. He's like, in this life, he just, he teaches martial arts, and we've never really been close. I mean, he didn't want a kid. And I just started realizing that maybe me going to the orphanage and all the stuff that happened to me was just like my parents never really cared about me. Because I remember my grandma would tell me after she adopted me, my parents didn't love me. Because if they loved me, they would have been alright, or they would have, I wouldn't have been there. And, I don't know, but I had all these dreams that, like, I'm a scientist and a part of a colony, and I feel like I'm simultaneously living in the past, present, and in the future all at once. But I'm here, and I'm stuck in this body, and I don't think I'm supposed to be doing anything except observing my own life and my memories and like the people I meet, their faces, what they look like. And there's something always bullying me, and they won't show themselves, which makes me feel like, okay, this person is either dead and passed on. And it's a feeling of brooding jealousy. And I can't figure out why, because it feels just like that girl did in the dream when we were in the school. And I was showing her my ring, and I was being nice to her, and she just gave me this look like, fuck you. Like, I don't want you to exist at all. Like, I want to take your life, and I don't want you to have anything, and I want to be you. And I can't figure out why, because when I look at myself in my present life, I don't have shit, I'm constantly moving, right? I have to. I mean, I don't have to. I could have renewed my lease this time, but I'm choosing to move so I can have a cheaper living space. And I'm constantly never allowed to really have friends. If I can't have a relationship anymore, that's like, that's off the table. I'll never have, like, any of that. I can't love anyone. And so I've gotten to the point where I'll push people away because I know that she's just waiting to follow me around and tear it apart, and then, I'll just look crazy. And no one will ever believe me because I'm just fucking crazy and psychotic. And it's like, sometimes she will use me, but I've gotten to the point where I can kind of block it out a lot. But it's also a lot of sacrificing things that I like to do. And people I want to talk to, my friends, that I can feel her using. And they don't know that they're being used. They don't know what's happening to them. And I just wish they would realize it. Like, people I really love. And I just don't understand why. And I've scoured my brain and I said, you know what? Did I do something to this spirit? Like, did I do something? And looking in my dreams, I've done a couple things, but not directly to anyone, and nothing major. And I think, what did I do? What did I do to this person to make them obsessed and jealous of me? Because I am nothing to be jealous of. I literally have had to dumb myself down, fatten myself up, just to be unappealing, just so I could not fucking have to deal with it. And you know what? It works. It works. I've noticed if I don't have a relationship, she doesn't come around as much. But still, sometimes she will use things to bully me. So I've started using social media less. I'll take frequent breaks. I'll delete the app. I like it when they ban me, because that way I can't get on there. It's like, I almost wish they would ban me permanently from social media so I wouldn't have an urge to get on there. And I started thinking about how the dreams where I live in a cave and there's someone that looks just like me, and I saved this lady's life in the cave. She could have fell, she could have hit her head, could have drowned in the cave. It was really steep, but I lived in the cave. And I was a monster. But I was okay because no one would bother me. And I helped this lady, and she just looked at me and she said, "Who are you?" And I looked at her, and it wasn't me. It was just like I was someone, and I said, "I'm Lucifer." And as soon as I said that name, it was like this fucking golden charioted superhero ego fuck came down. And like, who needs to be saved? And he's like pretending to save her, and she's just like, what the hell? And it's like, as soon as I said the name, it was like someone came down and pretended to save her, but I'd already saved her. And I just wanted this person to go away. Their light, their TV madness, their ego, all of the shit they were doing was like a bad representation of who I was, because the real me is not happy. I'm not like that. I live in a fucking cave. And I like it. And I'd like to get rid of the cell phone. Go back to my cave and take my books with me. These people suck. And I'm just a fucking mental case at this point, it feels like. And yeah. This force of whatever hates me, like really just hates me. Like the hatred it feels towards me and it rubs off on me and makes me hate other people. But the only reason I start to hate those people is because I see that person in them, and I hate the way that that person treats me. And it feels like there's no escape. You know, at this point, my family doesn't feel like my original family. Like, I look at my family members, and they're obviously there. They're in there somewhere. But did they even remember me, you know?